The media fought one of its greatest battles in 1986 when press freedom was restored after martial law. Since then, the Philippines has been hailed as one of the freest presses in Asia. Decades after, the media faces another challenge.
Just because he's a journalist, he's not supposed to be killed because he's a journalist. Huwag na tayo magbulaan dito.
After his controversial comments on media corruption and killings, Rodrigo Duterte has boycotted media in the run-up to his presidency. Journalists have been banned at his events and coverage limited to state broadcaster PTV4.
Just because you are a journalist, you are not exempted from assassination. If you are
But as the next president of the Philippines, Duterte must be held to account for both the promises and the threats he makes. He is answerable to the people and the media that speaks for them. How long can the president keep the media at bay? How can the media keep uncovering someone intent on avoiding it? Veteran journalists go on the record. I'm Pia Ontiveros. Journalism is both a privilege and a responsibility. The show will talk about media's responsibility to you and how we will cover the Duterte administration. Let's welcome our guests. Vergel Santos, columnist and chairman of the Center for Media Freedom and Responsibility. Sir, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
John Neri, editor-in-chief, Inquirer.net. Veronica Nikki Baluyot Jimenez, PTV4 channel anchor.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, Nikki. And Joe Torres of the Union of Catholic Asian News. Hi, Joe. Thank you for being here, representing the Mindanao voice. In a way. Okay, let's begin with this. How do we cover Duterte? Vergel Santos.
You cover Duterte in the same way you cover any president, except that in this case, because of what Duterte has done, boycotting the media, automatically the rules of engagement are relaxed in favor of the journalists.
Yeah. Wait, sir. Boycotting the media. We did not boycott him.
No,
we
you
did not agree
Yeah.
with the Reporters Without Borders.
Yes, because to boycott Duterte would amount to dereliction of duty. Anyway,
So the rules change a bit, in a way?
the rules are necessarily relaxed in favor of media people because you couldn't reach the president anymore. And therefore, you are forced to seek out the second-hand sources.
Meaning like who, for example, in the
People around the
administration?
president, people who have anything to say with the presidency. But of course, you always, whatever a journalist gets out of this relationship should be raised with either the president or the president's, the presidential
His representatives
people.
or his spokespersons.
For reaction and remarks. But if still they refuse, I mean, it is, to me, a fair story to run.
John, how do we cover Duterte?
We cover him the same way we cover any usually inaccessible personality with persistence and with creativity. Having said that, I do believe that the president-elect was playing with words when he said that he wasn't going to grant an interview until the end of his term. I think he meant, this might be wishful thinking on my part, but I think he meant until the end of his term as Davao mayor. I think he knows that part of the success that he achieved as Davao City Mayor was precisely he was able to work with Davao media. And for him to spurn national media or media outside of Davao, I think would go against his deepest instincts. Again, I might be just, that might just be wishful thinking, but I think that's what he meant.
When you say creativity, what exactly do you mean?
This time, we would need to get more voices, other voices into the story. It's interesting, for instance, that someone that you had interviewed before, the incoming PNP chief, said he couldn't have done what he did in Davao without the help of media. The same thing, that's the exact same thing that the incoming Agriculture Secretary, Manny Pino, also said. So it's possible that these people who might have access to him might be willing to talk to media.
Nikki
Yes.
Baluyot, speaking for someone from Channel 4,
Yeah,
government
well,
network, the one that
the official
The official network.
the official network of the government. We're very happy actually that he mentioned PTV and that we're actually the only ones now allowed to cover him to go to the official venues. But I think that despite being the official network, we still have to be very balanced, fair. We should of course, not trivialize or sensationalize our stories.
Okay, but you will, of course, as the government television network, you're not private media, di ba? These are not the
Yes,
private TV
yes, we're
networks. So
private
medyo iba rin yung the way you do your stories.
In the government station, there's some sort of censorship, right? But ever since Pinoy took over, we were allowed to do stories as long as we were balanced, okay? And we did away with politicians hosting shows and all that. And we hope to continue that in the Duterte administration, that will be balanced, we'll be allowed to bring out the issues to the people to come up with their own opinions and discernment. And I hope that there will not be any censorship, because incoming Secretary Martin Andanar said that he wants to pattern PTV after BBC and the Australian broadcasting. So we hope he will really do that for us.
Joe, how do we cover Duterte?
Covering Duterte, I think, would be challenging for Filipino media, because we have to go back to the basics of journalism. We have to do research. We have to get a lot of interviews from different people, because you have a president who actually sometimes have this difficulty in communicating what he wants to say. And he has this tendency to make short statements, like those words that he is fond of saying, those bad words that people...
Haven't heard them lately, huh?
Yeah, because he said that he would try to control himself because he is now president. But for media, actually, the challenge is to understand. But sometimes we have to second guess because of the failure of the president to tell us what he wants to say directly.
You said difficulty communicating, but the Davao media, people in Davao understand him perfectly, hindi ba?
Maybe.
So is there something wrong with the national media, with media here in, with the Manila media as
People
as
in
referred
Davao,
to?
people in Mindanao are used to him for the past 20 years. They're friends together in formal and informal functions, and very friendly with each other. Even with some gestures, they know that the president or the mayor, the former mayor of Davao, does not want this question to be asked.
So how? What are you saying now, Joe? When he's president, when he's taken over, when he's in power, how should the media? And are we going to stop asking the questions? Paano ba yan? If he doesn't want them to be asked?
Sometimes you will get answers that non-answers to questions. Like you have to ask those questions, those difficult questions. For example, there's this one reportedly a Davao-based journalist who asked about the president's health. Somebody has to ask that. If the president would answer that question or not, it's up to him. But somebody has to ask those hard questions.
All right, we'll continue asking some questions after the break. We need to take a short break. Welcome back. You're on the record still with us. Vergel Santos of CMFR, John Neri of Inquirer.net, Nikki Baluyot Jimenez of PTV4, and Joe Torres of UCAN. Have you ever encountered anyone like Rodrigo Duterte in all your years as a journalist? Vergel?
Not at all.
Not at all.
He's an entirely different character, an entirely different president-elect. The difference that he makes is rather controversial and to an extent disturbing. That's why it becomes even a greater challenge. I can see that some of them have been thrown off or altogether lost, not knowing precisely how to deal with him.
John, Neri.
As a political personality, he reminds me the most of Joseph Estrada, very charismatic, who knows how to touch populist buttons. But as a president in relation to media, as a president with problems with media, he is a unique case. He seems to have resented some of the things that, some of the coverage about him during the campaign, and I'm hoping that does not spill over into the rest of his term. But I think we're seeing some of that. During his victory rally, about 500,000 people in Davao City went to see him. I covered that. He had very entertaining but also vicious things to say about media. And he was, with all due respect to the points Joe was making, he was trying to drive a wedge between, he's trying to make a distinction between Davao media and the rest of media, which I think is not healthy, because I think there are some Davao journalists who have covered some of the things that we want to cover the way we want to cover them. There are some national media organizations that have covered Duterte the way he wants to be covered. So it's actually a more complicated picture than just saying yung mga taga Manila kasi they don't understand us. And he in fact did say that.
Nikki, I remember during the time of President Cory, I was part of the Malacanang Press Corps, and there was so much media freedom. We wanted more, but she decided that no, she's going to have a press conference only once a week, and it's going to be structured, only a few media people. So we didn't take that sitting down. So we decided to boycott her. We wore black armbands, and nobody's going to cover her.
And that's how the Malacanang media came to be known as the Brat,
the Brat Pack. Yeah, we were the Brat Pack. But of course, we were able to, sit down and talk to her, and we fixed things. So the boycott was cut no more. But this time, it's the opposite. It's the president-elect, the president to be boycotting the media. But I think, it's more advantageous for him to not boycott media, because it's difficult for media people to be getting like second-hand information from even cabinet members or the spokesperson. It's better to get it from the horse's mouth.
Okay, Joe, have you ever encountered anyone like him?
In the national arena, I think there's nobody like Duterte. But actually, he's not unique when it comes to local politics. For instance, I have encountered a lot of local government officials who act like him. I have been to one province and I talked to a governor.
What province?
In Mindanao. One province in Mindanao. And I wanted to...
That's clear enough,
Yeah,
okay.
I wanted to interview the governor. And the first thing that the governor did was to bring me to a firing range. And he showed me his, that he can fire a gun and he is good at it. And then he said, those who will criticize me will die. I've been to another province also where a dynasty was ruling two provinces, and it was in the early 90s. There were a lot of killings, and nobody wanted to dare and ask the local government officials. So I went there and I told the mayor, sir, I will just ask questions that I've heard. Let's be fair. And I said, you were accused of killing all these people, masterminding. And he answered me and said, I will write, I will publish, I will print everything that you said. And he said, okay, and we will be friends and everything like that, and you will not kill me, because he was...
You said you will not kill me.
You will not kill me, because
Okay.
he was known to be... They're dead already. They're killing each other now. Duterte is not unique when it comes to local government officials. There are a lot of local officials who are like him.
Yeah, but not all those local officials become president, di ba?
Of course. So, a lot of journalists in Mindanao, they would say, we understand people like him.
So how do we...
It's one thing to understand them. It's another to know how to deal with them, given your position or responsibility as a journalist. It's two different things. I can understand that you can explain why these things are happening in the provinces. Why? First, the culture of patronage operates most clearly and widely in the provinces. Second, not enough light shines in the provinces. After about 6 or 7 in the evening, everything becomes dark and you can do whatever you like. So but all the same, it is, as I've said, one thing to understand from your view. I don't know what the viewpoint of the journalist is when he says, I understand him. But that is not the point. The point is having to deal with him in the context of your position or responsibility as the champion of ultimate resort for the people.
So in other, the rules for journalism don't change.
Don't change. They don't change.
They're not
change
bent
with
for
news
anything.
sources. They don't change with news subjects. They don't change with territory. You just have to deal with all these factors. If you can't, you go do something else.
What is the role dapat ng media? Is it to be friendly? Is
No,
it
to
to
be
be
adversarial.
adversarial?
To be adversarial.
Critical?
To be adversarial, to be critical. Definitely
Adversarial
not to be
meaning
friendly.
combative?
No, not
always, or
combative.
what?
Not manifold.
Adversarial meaning?
Adversarial is simply the virtue that is most helpful to journalists is skepticism. I mean, you don't take just about anything a news subject or a news source tells you. I mean, you put it through the test of journalism. I mean, meaning validating, cross-checking, going to
Clarifying,
other sources,
yeah.
clarifying, things like that.
Okay.
But you know, he has said that he's going to metamorphose, and he promised that. And I think that, for all you know, he might really change, you know, even with his relationship with media. I think we should give him a chance. Let's see how when he's already president, how he's going to, because you've seen that, okay, he said he's not going to wear barong, but he's wearing barong today. And he said so many things, but then he changed his mind. He listens to what the people are saying, and he can change his mind.
Yeah, but it is not for us to give him a chance. It is for himself to give himself a chance.
It is for us to report
Yeah, that's
and
all.
to do stories on it.
The thing is, you don't complicate the
I look
job.
forward to the metamorphosis, but whether he changes or not, the relationship, the nature of the relationship between presidency and media remains the same. It's adversarial, but not hostile. I think that's something that we need to keep stressing, because some people don't know how to take criticism. They think, you know, they're personally against that person and so on. So it's adversarial in the sense that the three branches of government are adversarial. I mean, they have to work together, but at the same
Check and
time,
balance, ano?
at the same time, there's checks and balances.
All right, wait, we have to look forward first to a break. We have to take a short break. On the Record, we'll be right back. Stay with us. Welcome back to On the Record. The next question is, you know, let's shine the light on ourselves. Did we have this coming? Is Philippine media biased? Is Philippine media corrupt? And if there are among us those who are corrupt, do they deserve to be killed, as some said? Does Philippine media deserve all this?
Well, I think you should be careful in answering that question. What does this mean? Because if this means, you know, violence against journalists,
Violence, and at the same time, the criticism. You know, there's a lot of bashing
Yeah.
going on.
But I wanna make a
President-elect
distinction.
Duterte himself was very critical of media.
that's right. Criticism, yes. I think we should welcome that kind of attitude towards our work. But the kind of attitude that, you know, calls for violence against media practitioners, just because we write something that happens to be critical of, you know, a personality they support, I think that's something that we cannot agree. This is a good opportunity for us to review what we're doing. Again, I want to stress, I am really dismayed, having been born in Cagayan de Oro, spending my formative years in Mindanao, that there seems to be this apparent effort to make a distinction between Davao media or local media and national media. As Verhal said, in the end, the standards of journalism are the same, the objectives are the same, the work is the same. On the
Then it
issue,
makes us also more careful, not to be timid, but to be careful about our work, our stories, our facts. Parang ganun.
I think the new administration should realize that just because we are aware of our own shortcomings does not mean we are not going to be doing our jobs. If the whole idea is to intimidate us by saying, well, you guys have corruption issues yourselves, you have competency issues, you have efficiency issues, what gives you the right to ask us about corruption, competence, efficiency? We have to give it back to them and say, well, you know, that's our job.
Come to think of it, the right to criticize, to ask questions, it's not exclusive to the media. And corruption itself, I would suppose, just as widespread in the media as in any other professions. I don't see why they should throw back at any other practitioner of any profession, his or her being corrupt at all. I mean, it's given. I mean, there are corrupt media people as much as there are corrupt doctors and politicians and lawyers and everybody else. But all the same, what makes things fair is that we all have the same rights, powers, and privilege under the law.
It's very dangerous, actually. We have these limitations, we have these allegations of inefficiency, but these limitations should not be a reason for attacks on the media. We have been under attack for several years already. We are always on the top 3 or 5 countries where journalists are killed. You know, it's a very the Philippines is a very dangerous place for journalists, and then we have these irresponsible statements from government officials saying that, you know, and it fuels public anger and against the media that makes journalism here in the Philippines dangerous. But it is the job of media to ask questions and to ask hard questions.
But, admittedly, we have our own biases. And I think that as journalists, we shouldn't show that, unless it's an editorial or unless it's a... Because we have to show the distinction between what is really reporting information and facts and what is analyzing and editorializing, so that we give the people a chance to think for themselves and decide for themselves.
Okay, we need to wrap this up already. So I wanted you to tell us what you thought about this. How does all of this, the way we view our role, not just under a Duterte administration, but for any administration, how this impacts on press freedom. Is this a threat to us? What do we do about this? How this will impact on society? How this will impact on our role as journalists? Brahel, Santos.
I would also imagine that what the president says, what the president does, have an impact on the way we do our job. But it's one thing to be intimidated, another to be indulgent. I can understand that some newspaper could be intimidated given the uncommon warnings and words issuing from president. But indulging him is another matter. That's the worst thing that a journalist can become. I think the journalist should always remember that the relationship is adversarial.
Adversarial, but not hostile.
But as John says, definitely not hostile. And just remember that in the job, and never bias. We can only try the best we can to be fair. I mean, bias is, we're all biased. But another point that I think should be emphasized is that we have been given this job, as I've said, the ultimate champion of the public.
John, and interesting, earlier, you were saying ERAP, you could compare him to ERAP. ERAP called for an ad boycott of Inquirer, right. Okay.
I think for our readers, that was a teaching, a learning moment. Which brings me to my first. I like to make 2 points. First is this is an invitation for us.
We marched for that.
Yes, right. We should take this as an invitation to promote greater media literacy. We can already start seeing this. Some of our reporters are already writing on Facebook. This is what I do on a daily basis. I wake up this early. It's not life in a rose garden or whatever cliche you might want to use. It's not glamorous at all. So maybe we can do that. People need to understand it's adversarial but not hostile. There's a difference between we welcome the blossoming of social media accounts, but there's a difference between just social media and standard or traditional media. And the other has to do with press freedom. I don't think anyone is laying the gauntlet saying, Mr. President, don't cross this line. But I don't think that needs to be said. I think that our experience teaches us that we have learned our lesson, and if press freedom happens to be is curtailed, I think that there will be enough people, enough journalists, and members of the audience that will come out and do something about it.
All right, Nikki?
I think there's still press freedom, media freedom. There's no media blackout. You can still hook up with PTV. You still get the news. You still get his whole speech. So, you just have to be more enterprising, coming up with creative ways to come up with really good stories. So, it's really up to you.
We'll still get the story in. Joe?
Yeah, Philippine journalism is not just about Duterte. In the next 6 years, it's a challenging job to be a journalist here in the Philippines with a president who talks like that. But at the same time, talking about press freedom, I don't think that Duterte has this courage or capacity to curtail or stop or, hinder press freedom in this country.
We thought Marcos wouldn't do that either.
Thank you very much to our guests. Brahel, Santos, thank you, sir, for being here. John Neri, thank you very much, John. Nikki Baluyo Jimenez, thank you, Nikki. And Joe Torres. Salamat, Joe. Thank you very much for being here. And thank you for joining us on The Record. I'm Pia Ontiveros.